The moment Eliza Morgan stumbled into Mark's arms outside the company holiday party, everything changed. Her perfume, expensive and intoxicating, mingled with the scent of whiskey on her breath as he caught her, preventing what would have been a disastrous fall onto the icy sidewalk. For 3 years, she had been nothing but Ms. Morgan, the intimidating CEO who barely acknowledged his existence. Now, as he helped her into a rideshare, he never imagined that by morning, the woman who controlled his paycheck would see him as something more than just another employee number. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and heartfelt stories that explore the unexpected connections we make in life. Your support helps us continue sharing these meaningful narratives. Mark Reynolds adjusted his tie nervously as he entered the grand ballroom of the Westlake Hotel. The annual holiday party for Pinnacle Innovations was in full swing, with executives mingling over champagne and catered hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget. At 34, Mark was neither young enough to be excited about the open bar nor established enough to feel comfortable networking with the company's upper management. He was simply there because attendance was essentially mandatory, and he couldn't afford to jeopardize his position as a mid-level marketing analyst. "Daddy, look at the Christmas tree." 6-year-old Lily tugged at his hand, pointing toward the massive evergreen that dominated the corner of the ballroom. Her eyes sparkled with wonder, reflecting the thousands of twinkling lights that adorned the tree. Mark smiled down at his daughter, grateful that the invitation had included family members this year. Since losing his wife to cancer 2 years ago, he'd become accustomed to bringing Lily everywhere when childcare fell through. Tonight's babysitter had cancelled last minute with a flu, leaving him no choice but to bring Lily along. He'd prepared her thoroughly, be polite, use indoor voice, don't wander off, and dressed her in her favorite holiday dress, complete with a red velvet bow in her dark curls. "It's beautiful, isn't it, sweetheart?" he said, squeezing her small hand. "Remember what we talked about, though. This is Daddy's work party, so we need to be on our best behavior." Lily nodded solemnly, her expression serious beyond her years. "I know, Daddy. I'll be good so you don't lose your job." Mark's heart clenched. No 6-year-old should have to worry about such things, yet Lily had absorbed the reality of their situation through osmosis. The medical bills from Sarah's illness had depleted their savings, and his single income barely covered their modest apartment and Lily's needs. This job at Pinnacle was their lifeline. "You don't need to worry about that," he assured her, kneeling to her level. "Just be yourself, your wonderful, polite self, and everything will be fine." As they made their way through the crowd, Mark nodded greetings to colleagues while keeping a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. He spotted his immediate supervisor, Dave Harrington, by the bar and steered them in that direction. "Mark. Glad you could make it." Dave's handshake was firm, his smile genuine. "And who's this young lady?" "This is my daughter, Lily," Mark said proudly. "Our babysitter came down with the flu, so she's my +1 tonight." Dave bent down to Lily's level. "Well, Miss Lily, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about you from your dad." Lily offered her small hand with surprising poise. "Nice to meet you too, Mr. Harrington. Daddy says you're a good boss." Dave laughed, straightening up. "I try to be. Listen, Mark, I wanted to catch you before the speeches start. That campaign proposal you submitted last week? Brilliant work. I've passed it up to the executive team." Mark's pulse quickened. "Really? Thank you, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity." "Don't thank me yet," Dave lowered his voice. "It has to get past the Ice Queen first." They both instinctively glanced toward the center of the room, where Eliza Morgan stood surrounded by board members. At 41, she was the youngest CEO in the company's history and had earned her nickname through her ruthless business decisions and seemingly emotionless demeanor. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, her black designer dress both elegant and intimidating. Even from across the room, her presence commanded attention. Ms. Morgan doesn't seem very nice, Lily whispered, following their gaze. Mark quickly shushed her. We don't judge people we don't know, Lily. Ms. Morgan has a big job with lots of responsibility. Dave chuckled. Your dad's right, but between us grown-ups, she's turned down the last 5 proposals from our department without so much as a comment. Just a red, rejected stamp and sent back down the chain. Mark's hope deflated slightly. He'd poured weeks into that proposal, staying up late after putting Lily to bed, refining the strategy until he was confident it could boost their client's engagement by at least 30%. It was the kind of innovative thinking that could lead to a promotion, something he desperately needed with Lily starting school and expenses only increasing. Well, I appreciate you putting it forward regardless, Mark said, maintaining his optimism. I believe in the concept. The evening progressed with speeches from various executives, followed by dinner. Mark and Lily found themselves seated at a table with other marketing department colleagues, far from the executive table where Eliza Morgan presided. Throughout the meal, Mark noticed the CEO drinking steadily, champagne with appetizers, wine with dinner, and now what appeared to be whiskey as dessert was being served. It was surprising, the woman had a reputation for iron control. As the formal portion of the evening concluded and the dance floor opened, Mark checked his watch. It was nearing 9, well past Lily's bedtime, and he could see her struggling to keep her eyes open despite the excitement. Time to head home, princess, he said gently. Say goodbye to everyone. Lily yawned but protested weakly. But they're just starting the dancing, Daddy. I know, but little girls need their sleep. Besides, you have ballet class tomorrow morning. After saying their goodbyes, Mark helped Lily into her coat and collected their things. As they made their way toward the exit, he noticed Eliza Morgan swaying slightly as she excused herself from a conversation with board members. Her normally perfect posture was compromised, and there was a flush to her cheeks that hadn't been there earlier. Mark hesitated, watching as she headed toward the same exit they were approaching. Something about her unsteady gait concerned him, but it wasn't his place to say anything to the CEO of the company, a woman who probably didn't even know his name despite his 3 years at Pinnacle. Outside, the December air hit them with a blast of cold. Lily shivered, and Mark pulled her closer as they waited for the valet to bring around his modest sedan. The sidewalk in front of the hotel had developed patches of black ice, treacherous in the dim evening light. Mr. Reynolds? Mark turned, surprised to hear his name. Eliza Morgan stood a few feet away, fumbling with her phone. Up close, he could see that her eyes were slightly unfocused, her normally impeccable composure fractured. Yes, Ms. Morgan? You're in marketing, correct? 3rd floor? Her words were precise but delivered with deliberate care, as though she was concentrating on each syllable. Yes, ma'am. Mark Reynolds, Digital Marketing Team. She nodded, then frowned at her phone. My driver app isn't working. Technology, she muttered, swaying slightly. Mark glanced down at Lily, who was watching the interaction with curious eyes, then back at his boss. Can I help you call a car, Ms. Morgan? That would be. She took a step forward and her heel hit a patch of ice. In an instant, she was falling. Mark reacted without thinking, releasing Lily's hand and lunging forward. He caught Eliza just before she hit the ground, one arm around her waist, the other gripping her arm. For a moment, they froze in that position, her body against his, her wide eyes meeting his, their breath forming small clouds in the cold air between them. I've got you, he said quietly. Something flickered across her face, surprise, embarrassment, perhaps gratitude, before she regained her composure and straightened, though she didn't immediately step away from his supportive arm. Thank you, she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. That would have been unfortunate. Are you okay, lady? Lily had appeared at their side, her small face creased with concern. Eliza looked down, seeming to notice the child for the first time. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Mark gently guided Eliza to a nearby bench. "Let me call you a car, Ms. Morgan. It's no trouble." She didn't protest as he took her phone and ordered a rideshare. While they waited, Lily, despite her fatigue, chatted amiably to fill the awkward silence. "My mommy used to say that high heels and ice don't mix," she informed Eliza seriously. "She fell once and broke her wrist. Daddy had to take her to the hospital." "Lily," Mark warned gently, but Eliza surprised him with a small smile. "Your mommy was very wise," she said. "I should have been more careful." "Mommy's in heaven now," Lily continued matter-of-factly. "But she still watches out for us. Maybe she helped Daddy catch you." Mark felt heat rise to his face. "Lily, Ms. Morgan doesn't need to hear our personal stories." But Eliza's expression had softened further. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, and the sincerity in her voice caught Mark off guard. Before he could respond, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. "That's your ride," Mark said, helping her to her feet. He walked her to the car, keeping a steadying hand near her elbow. At the door, Eliza turned to him. "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. For the assistance and the discretion." "Of course. Have a good night, Ms. Morgan." As the car pulled away, Lily tugged at his coat. "Daddy, is your boss lady going to be okay?" Mark nodded, guiding her toward their own car that had just arrived. "Yes, sweetheart. She just needed a little help tonight." "Like we sometimes need help?" Lily asked innocently. Mark buckled her into her booster seat, considering her question. "Exactly like that. Everyone needs help sometimes, even CEOs." As he drove home through the quiet streets, Lily quickly fell asleep in the back seat. Mark's mind, however, remained at the hotel entrance, replaying the moment when Eliza Morgan had looked at him not as a subordinate but as a person who had come to her aid. It was probably nothing. Tomorrow she would be back to being the untouchable Ice Queen, and he would return to being an invisible cog in the corporate machine. Still, there had been something in her eyes in that moment of vulnerability that had seemed almost human. The next morning, Mark rushed through their routine, dropping Lily at ballet class before heading to the office. Saturday work sessions weren't uncommon at Pinnacle, especially for those hoping to climb the corporate ladder. He doubted Eliza Morgan would be in after last night, which might give him a chance to catch up on work without the usual weekday interruptions. The office was quiet, with only a few dedicated employees scattered throughout the open floor plan. Mark settled at his desk, powering up his computer and organizing his notes for a client presentation due Monday. He was so absorbed in his work that he didn't notice the approaching footsteps until a shadow fell across his desk. "Mr. Reynolds." Mark's head snapped up. Eliza Morgan stood before him, impeccably dressed in a charcoal pantsuit, her hair loose around her shoulders, the only deviation from her usual severe style. There was no trace of the previous night's vulnerability, her posture was straight, her gaze direct. "Ms. Morgan," he stammered, rising quickly. "Good morning. Do you have a moment to speak in my office?" Mark's stomach dropped. Was this about last night? Had he overstepped by helping her? Perhaps she was embarrassed and wanted to ensure his silence. "Of course," he managed, following her to the executive elevator. The ride to the top floor was silent and tense, at least on his part. Eliza seemed perfectly composed, checking emails on her phone as though this was a routine meeting. Her corner office offered a panoramic view of the city, the winter sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She gestured for him to take a seat across from her desk, then surprised him by choosing not the executive chair behind it but the adjacent seat. "I owe you my gratitude for last night," she began without preamble. "And an apology for putting you in that position." "There's no need to apologize, Ms. Morgan. I was happy to help." She studied him for a moment. "You have a remarkable daughter, Mr. Reynolds. She speaks very highly of you." Mark felt a surge of pride mixed with confusion. "Thank you." She's my world. I gathered that. Eliza's expression softened slightly. She mentioned that you're raising her alone since your wife passed away. That can't be easy while managing a full-time career. Mark shifted uncomfortably. He never discussed his personal circumstances at work, preferring to keep his professional and private lives separate. We manage. Lily is very understanding about the demands of my job. Too understanding, perhaps, for a child her age? There was no judgment in Eliza's tone, only a perceptiveness that caught him off guard. Sometimes, he admitted. She worries more than she should. Eliza nodded, then reached for a folder on her desk. I reviewed your marketing proposal this morning. The one for the Westfield account. The abrupt change of subject gave Mark whiplash, but he quickly refocused. Yes, I submitted it last week. It's excellent work. Innovative, strategic, and with a clear understanding of the client's needs. She opened the folder, revealing his proposal with notes in the margins, not in red, but in blue ink. I've made some suggestions, but the core concept is sound. I'd like you to present it to the client on Tuesday. Mark blinked in surprise. Me? Present to Westfield directly? Is that a problem? No, not at all. I'm just surprised. That's usually handled by the senior account managers. Eliza closed the folder and handed it to him. Perhaps it's time we reconsidered some of our standard procedures. Your perspective is valuable, Mr. Reynolds, and I believe the client will respond well to your approach. Thank you for the opportunity, Mark said, still processing this unexpected turn of events. I won't let you down. I know you won't. She paused, seeming to consider her next words carefully. There's something else I'd like to discuss. Pinnacle has been exploring the implementation of more family-friendly policies. Flexible scheduling, expanded parental leave, emergency childcare services. I'd be interested in your insights, given your situation. Mark couldn't hide his surprise. That would be transformative for many employees. Myself included. I thought it might be. Eliza stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I'm forming a committee to develop these policies. I'd like you to be part of it, representing the perspective of single parents in our workforce. As Mark rose, he struggled to reconcile this thoughtful, perceptive woman with the cold, distant CEO he'd known for 3 years. May I ask what prompted this initiative? Eliza met his gaze directly. Let's just say that sometimes it takes seeing someone clearly for the first time to recognize what's been missing from your perspective. As Mark left her office, proposal in hand and mind reeling from the conversation, he couldn't help but feel that something fundamental had shifted. The woman who had looked at him with such vulnerability last night had seen something in him too, not just an employee who had helped her in a moment of need, but a human being with value beyond his job description. The following weeks brought changes that Mark could never have anticipated. The presentation to Westfield was a success, leading to an expanded contract and recognition from the executive team. His participation in the Family Policy Committee gave him a voice he'd never had before at Pinnacle, and the resulting initiatives, including an on-site childcare center and flexible work arrangements, improved life not just for him and Lily but for dozens of employees juggling professional and family responsibilities. More surprising was the evolving relationship with Eliza Morgan. What began as professional respect gradually developed into a friendship of sorts. She sought his input on marketing strategies beyond his assigned accounts, invited him to meetings where his level of seniority wouldn't normally warrant inclusion, and occasionally asked about Lily with genuine interest. For her part, Eliza revealed glimpses of the person behind the executive facade. During late working sessions, she shared stories of her own challenging path to the CEO position, the sacrifices, the doubts, the constant pressure to prove herself in a male,